Good day to you, partner. I'm keen, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken camp.
Hey guys, Wheat Solo here, aka the Skeleton King. So, I've said this many times that any player should never upgrade any item in the cube. And now I'd like to apologize. I was wrong. Now, I still think you should take it with caution because most people do not want their items upgraded. That is still a general thing in Diablo 2. And it's pretty simple the reason why. It might interfere with your stat points. The difference is that in PD2, defense means a lot more. There's a reason they nerfed or readjusted how Defiance works at scaling. Instead of being a linear, it's now a what's called exponential. So it starts off low and then ramps up. So that way, like, if a player like a Necromancer has Exile, then we don't just get a massive defense boost. You kind of need to actually use Emilio, the best Act 2 Merc in the game, who easily can have a level 18 Defiance, or have a Paladin in your party. Defense has become, like, it's like, we started to realize how good defense was in Season 4, and now it's just like my only concern these days. Like, it's like defense and bone armor, okay? Like, yes, max res, okay? Elemental damage does exist. But if you have high defense and bone armor, you will never die and you feel like you are invincible. So on my Act 2 Merc, I'm actually using plus skill gear. Now, I wouldn't think this is necessarily BIS, but it is an idea for you to play like this, especially when your Act 2 Merc doesn't have the kind of damage that you need from him yet. Like, why not get more defense from him? As you can see, adding all skills will increase the amount of defense given from his Defiance aura. I also get a little bit more PDR, which is not a bad thing. So here's my gear. It was basically the same gear as the last video. The only difference is that I'm upping, more and more of my gear. And eventually I'll just up everything. Now, one more side note about upping. I still, if I was a new player, I wouldn't just do it unless you kind of know what you're doing, which is kind of what I always said about it, is that you should never upgrade anything unless you know what you're doing. So just take that in mind. Like, it might lower the value of the item. So just remember that, okay? Don't come crying to me if you upgrade an item and then someone won't want to buy it anymore, okay? Don't tell them the Skeleton King said upgrade everything. Even if I did at one point, I walked it back very quickly, okay? It was a quick walk back. As you can see, the skill adjustment is pretty simple. Like, just look at how big the blood curse is. Like, there's no way not to run this. And if you think this build only has value for budget, you're wrong. Actually, what I want to try and do is I either want to make Fuzzy do it or borrow some of his gear. But I was experimenting using this build with only using the blood curse. And I'm pretty sure it won't be that hard to do enough damage to do T1s and possibly even T2s. Literally just running through and smashing Dark Pact. And, having like 5 witches and like 3 council members, or fill in, insert revive here. Uduar, Thrashers / Moonlords would work for the boss, etc. Also, putting on the Lava Gouts on your Merc for the enchant is always nice. Lower resist is a pretty big radius, and lower resist just kind of synergizes better for the most part with a ranged character. And so then if you put on Lava Gouts, you can run Thrashers, and they do serious damage and have the best or most consistent CC in the game. Abdominals do have a very good CC. I think I've underrated them, and I apologize. So this map's going pretty well. What I really want to focus on, though, is talking more about defense. I know that sounds stupid, But Poison King Orlandis is working on his Fire Golem build, and what impressed me about it is the fact that his swap, he uses Ormus robes, by the way. Like, that's just clearly the best armor. Trangs is very good. Trangs is just solid, especially with 2 or 3 sockets plus 1 skills, just for the Blood Warp alone. But what Landis realized is that with very, very good gear, basically having a lot of plus skills and a lot of mastery, it turns out skillers are better. Now, will that affect anybody watching this video right now? Probably not. When I mean very good gear, I do mean very good gear. Like, I don't think Zuras gear was good enough to have this effect yet. But at some point, if you have enough of skills and enough mastery, then skills overtake mastery again. And it is definitely both of them. Like, I guess if you actually had a shit ton of mastery, then skills would be better. But I don't think that would happen, and you still need the skills, kind of. Like, there's like an opportunity cost curve, right? And both have some sort of relative, what's the word for it? There's a term for this in science where something always gets worse. I forget what it's called. It's basically a general rule about life, is that adding more makes something worse. And that's just kind of the idea about relative scaling. And so almost everything in this game is affected by relative scaling, while adding slightly more does slightly less than the first slightly more. I'm sorry, but this kind of concept is actually really important if you ever get into video games or math or science in general, is the idea of let's say you're at 100 ED, going to 110 ED it's not as simple as you got 10% better. Or maybe in that case it is. Let's say 200 to 210. Okay, now my math will be better. You didn't get 10% better. You actually got 5% better. Okay, so now I illustrated it clearly with mathematics. If you have 200 ED on your character and you add 10 ED, you are not 10% stronger, you're 5% stronger. So that sort of idea is present in video games all the time. And it actually is a really, like, once you get that, it makes it a lot quicker for you to start to plan your own builds and your own characters. You don't constantly need to go to some fucking retard like Wheat Solo and go, the Skeleton King, what do I do? And then the Skeleton King's like, upgrade your gear. And then you upgrade your gear, and then no one wants to buy it. And then you cry, and, you know, you probably call a suicide hotline at that point. And they're like, who told you to upgrade your gear? They're like, the Skeleton King. And then I get sued and DMCA'd. Okay, it's a slippery slope, guys. Don't let that happen to you. Learn how to play the game yourself. I promise you. I know my videos, some people like them, some people don't, but the idea behind them is that for you to kind of figure out how this game works and how eventually you can kind of just do things on your own. That would be my number one objective always. So when speaking about relatively better and then going into fire golems, and it turns out that plus skills are eventually better, he doesn't actually need Trang's armor anymore. And this does wrap around. If he doesn't need Trang's armor for the blood warp reduction, he's going to be using Ormus anyways, right? To summon them. That's just clearly the best option. Well, he's using stone. And, like, I just want to rep that right now, that stone is a rune word that is so underlooked, but I actually think it's broken. It's broken beyond all belief. Like Steel Carapace is a solid option, and I think Steel Carapace should see more play. I used to underrate it, I am sorry, but the more I learn about defense, the better Steel Carapace seems. I do think it's not necessarily better than Trang's Chest or Ormus, or so not Ormus, K. Jurgens, as in for general Necromancer use, but it's like definitely that should be on your consideration, your radar, so to speak. Some Necromancers have used it, especially for group play. Definitely an option. Like, what would I use? Well, I'd use Enigma. Like, if that's, I'm sorry. I'm just going to stick with Enigma. I just love Blink. But if you're not using Enigma, Steel Carapace should be on your radar, especially for group maps. And then, you don't even really need plus skills. Like, if you're playing Fire Golems and you snapshot, or you're in a group, yes, plus skills help your curses, and Blood Warp is nice, but you can generally get a Blood Warp anyways. So imagine running Stone, which has 2,600 defense on not even like an optimal piece of a chest plate. And then it's got some other good stats as well. That sort of defense is where my mind is at always these days. Every time I'm playing a character, I'm thinking, how can I get more defense? Like, you should be looking at on your rolls for your gear. When I played Diablo 2 all those years ago when I was a kid, the only thing I was concerned about was PDR. And it was stupid then, and now it's actually pointless. PDR has become an irrelevant stat in Diablo 2 in most situations. The only time PDR matters anymore is it could possibly matter for a sorceress, and I'm not saying you should avoid it, but PDR is not the way you are tanky in this game. The way you get tanky in this game is high defense. With 10,000 plus defense, you basically can run a T3 and never die. Now, I promise you that if you try, you can go and do a T3 right now with 10,000 defense and you could die really, really fucking fast. But I don't mean eating glue. I don't mean some of the people who comment on my YouTube videos talking about how stupid I am. I'm talking about the people slightly above that. If you can try to target getting 10,000 defense on your Necromancer while going for a max or generally energy dump build into Bone Armor, you will never have a reason to fear death anymore. There's like literally only time you could ever die at that point if you have 10,000 defense and a nice Bone Armor with, still enough vitality. Basically, your only fear is this. It's going to be Conviction. And I really think they need to relook at Conviction at some point because it's just way too strong. Now, Diablo 2 was not at the point of D3 or, what is it called? PoE, Path of Exile, where it just enemies scale so ridiculously. But fanaticism, might, concentration, and conviction still kind of give the game that feel sometimes where it's like, everything's fine, I'm just playing the game, and then all of a sudden, oh wow, everything hurts so much. Again, the game is nowhere close to other games in the ARPG genre, but it's something they should probably consider, is that conviction maybe is overtuned. By the way, you can see Wahid is no problem. He does mainly physical damage, and with Bone Armor, I should never die. There is knockback, and as you can see, it actually takes a chunk off of my Bone Armor, so I wouldn't just fall asleep while doing this boss. My Melio at this point has like no weapon. It's pathetic. And guess what? Remember all those people? The guy who said the run isn't over until you slam your gear? Well, guess what? I'm going to slam my gear in this video, you piece of shit. So the map timer's not over. It's over when I slam. Anyways, I've said everything I wanted to say for now. DP is the best Necromancer build in the game for general play. Is Poison faster? Yes. But DP can be played budget all the way to in-game, and every step of the way feels good. It can be played day one in Hell. It can even be played to Hell, and then it can be played as you acquire gear in Hell all the way to the very, very end game. Hopefully some more in-game DP coming. Skillet King out, guys. GG.
Come and play with us, Daddy. Forever